There's a moment during fasting when your body quietly switches, and most people never reach it. From the outside, fasting looks simple. You stop eating, you wait, and eventually your body is supposed to start burning fat. That's what most people believe. That fat loss begins the moment food stops. But inside your body, nothing works that way. There is no instant shift, no immediate reward. There is a delay, and inside that delay, something important is waiting to happen. Because your body doesn't respond to the absence of food the way you expect. It responds to signals, and those signals take time to change. Hidden deep inside your body, your liver is constantly monitoring your environment. It's not just reacting to what you eat. It's deciding what your body should do with energy. Store it, protect it, or release it. And for most of your day, especially if you eat regularly, your liver stays in one mode: storage. That's the default. So when you begin fasting, you might expect your body to flip immediately into fat-burning mode. But your liver doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't assume that food is gone forever. It assumes food will return. And until it is certain that it needs to change, it keeps doing what it has always done. This is where most people get confused. They fast for a few hours. Maybe they feel a little hungry, maybe slightly uncomfortable, and they assume something should already be happening. That fat should already be burning. But inside, your liver hasn't switched yet. It's still waiting. And this is the hidden part. Because there is a specific moment, a biological turning point, where your liver finally decides to stop storing and start releasing. A moment when your entire metabolism begins to operate differently. But that moment doesn't happen early. It doesn't happen when it's easy. It happens later. After your body has gone through a sequence most people never complete. And that's why so many people say fasting doesn't work. Not because it fails, but because they stop right before the switch. They experience the discomfort of transition, but never reach the point of transformation. Your body is not random. It follows a pattern. And until your liver flips this switch, nothing actually changes. So if you've ever wondered why fasting feels slow at first, why results don't show up immediately, or why sometimes it feels like nothing is happening at all, it's because you haven't reached the moment your body has been waiting for. And once you understand where that moment is, everything starts to make sense. It's easy to assume that if fat loss isn't happening, something must be wrong with you. That your metabolism is slow, that your body is resisting change, or that you're simply not doing enough. But the reality is far less personal and far more biological than that. Your body is not failing you. It's protecting you. Every system inside you is designed to keep you alive, not to make you lean. And from your body's perspective, stored energy, fat, is not a problem. It's security. It's backup. It's survival. So when you begin fasting, your body doesn't immediately interpret that as an opportunity to burn fat. It interprets it as a potential risk, a signal that food might not be available. And the natural response to that signal is not to release energy, but to conserve it. This is where hormones come in. Because your body doesn't make decisions based on calories. It makes decisions based on signals. And one of the most powerful signals in your entire system is insulin. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. In response, insulin is released. And insulin sends a very clear message to your liver and your fat cells. Store energy, don't release it. It tells your liver to take glucose out of the bloodstream and store it as glycogen. And if there's more than your liver can hold, it begins converting that excess into fat. At the same time, insulin prevents fat from leaving your fat cells. It locks it in place. This is the critical point. As long as insulin is elevated, fat cannot be used as fuel, not because your body doesn't want to burn it, but because it has been told not to. Now think about how often most people eat. Breakfast, snacks, lunch, more snacks, dinner, maybe something later at night. Each time food enters your system, insulin rises again. And before it has a chance to fully fall, you eat again. So your body never receives a clear signal to switch out of storage mode. Your liver, in particular, becomes stuck in this pattern. It keeps receiving energy, keeps storing glycogen, and eventually starts accumulating fat when storage capacity is exceeded. Not because something is broken, but because it's doing exactly what it was instructed to do. So when you begin fasting, the first thing that needs to happen is not fat burning. It's the removal of that constant signal. Insulin has to drop. And that doesn't happen instantly. It happens gradually, over time, as your body processes the last of what you ate. Until insulin falls low enough, your liver will not release fat. It will continue to protect it. This is why fat loss doesn't begin when you stop eating. It begins when your internal signals change. And until that happens, your body stays in the same state, holding on to energy, waiting for clarity, and refusing to make a decision it doesn't yet feel safe making. So if you've ever felt like your body is resisting fat loss, it's not resistance, it's instruction. Your liver is not trying to burn fat, it's trying to survive. In the first few hours after you stop eating, nothing about your body feels dramatic. There's no sudden drop in energy, no clear sense that something major is changing. And that's because, biologically, your body is still operating as if food has just arrived. Inside your bloodstream, glucose from your last meal is still circulating. Your pancreas has already responded by releasing insulin, and that signal is still active. Your liver is busy doing exactly what it was told to do, taking that glucose and converting it into glycogen, a compact form of stored energy that it can use later. You can imagine glycogen as your liver's short-term reserve. It's easy to access, quick to mobilize, and designed to keep your body stable between meals. And right now, your liver is focused on filling that reserve. At the same time, insulin is still doing its other job, keeping fat locked away. Fat cells throughout your body, including the fat stored inside your liver, are not releasing energy. They're holding on to it, waiting for a different signal. As long as insulin is present at even moderately elevated levels, fat burning does not begin. This is the part most people misunderstand. They stop eating and assume that their body immediately shifts into fat-burning mode. But your body doesn't react to the absence of food instantly. It reacts to the hormonal environment. And that environment hasn't changed yet. So during these first 0 to 4 hours, your body is still in what can be called a fed state. Your liver is processing, organizing, and storing. It's stabilizing your blood sugar, making sure your brain and your cells have a steady supply of energy. Nothing is being wasted. Nothing is malfunctioning. And because of that, you won't feel much difference. You won't feel like fat is being burned. You won't feel like your body is switching modes. Everything feels relatively normal, because internally it is. But underneath that stability, something subtle is beginning to shift. Insulin, which rose after your last meal, is no longer being reinforced by new food. Slowly, gradually, it begins to decline. Not enough yet to unlock fat, but enough to begin changing the direction your body is heading. Your liver doesn't rush this process. It doesn't jump ahead. It follows a sequence. It waits until conditions are right before moving forward. And that's why this phase is so important. Because even though nothing looks different on the outside, your body is setting the stage for what comes next. It is finishing what it started with your last meal, while quietly preparing for a state it hasn't entered yet. So when you feel like nothing is happening during these early hours, you're right. Nothing has switched yet. Your body is still following the last instruction it received. And until that instruction fades completely, your liver will stay exactly where it is. Steady, controlled, and still in storage mode. As you move beyond those first few hours, something begins to shift, but not in the way most people expect. There's no dramatic moment yet, no sudden surge of fat burning. Instead, your body enters a quiet transition phase where it starts to rely less on incoming energy and more on what it has already stored. Between 4 and 8 hours after your last meal, insulin continues to decline. Slowly, steadily, its influence weakens. At the same time, another hormone begins to rise, glucagon. And glucagon sends a completely different message. Where insulin says store, glucagon says release. Your liver responds immediately. It turns to its glycogen stores and begins breaking them down into glucose. This process, known as glycogenolysis, allows your body to maintain a stable supply of energy even though you're no longer eating. Instead of depending on food, your liver is now supporting your brain and your body from its own reserves. This is the first real step away from constant dependence on food. But it's important to understand something here. You are still not burning fat yet. Your body is still relying on stored glucose. It's just coming from inside your liver instead of from your last meal. And as long as glycogen is available, your body prefers to use it. It's faster, easier, and requires no major shift in metabolism. This is why this phase can feel confusing. You might start to notice mild hunger, maybe a slight dip in focus, a bit of irritability or restlessness. These are signals that your body is adjusting to a new pattern. Your brain is used to a steady flow of incoming glucose, and now that flow is being carefully managed. But these sensations are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that something is changing. Your liver is beginning to take control of energy supply in a different way. It is no longer just storing. It is now releasing. It is balancing your system without the constant input of food. And yet, this is the exact point where most people stop. The discomfort is just enough to feel inconvenient, just enough to trigger the habit of eating again. And the moment you eat, when insulin rises, glycogen stores are refilled, and the entire process resets back to the beginning. The switch is missed again. Not because your body failed, but because it was never given the chance to go further. Because this phase, the transition, is not the destination. It's the doorway. Your glycogen stores are finite. They will not last forever. And as they begin to run low, your body is forced into a decision it has been avoiding. It can no longer rely on stored sugar. And when that moment arrives, your liver has no choice but to activate something different. Something most people never experience, because they turn back just before it begins. And that is where the real change finally happens. By the time you reach the 8 to 12-hour window, your body is no longer able to rely on the same systems it has been using since your last meal. Glycogen levels inside your liver are now running low, and in many cases, nearly depleted. The easy, familiar source of energy is no longer enough. And this is where the hidden switch finally activates. Your liver is forced to change the way it produces energy. It can no longer depend on stored glucose, so it turns to something it has been holding back this entire time: fat. Not just fat from your body in general, but also fat that has been stored inside your liver itself. For hours, that fat has been locked away, protected by insulin. But now, insulin has dropped low enough that the signal changes. Fat cells receive permission to release their contents. Fatty acids begin to flow into your bloodstream, traveling toward your liver. And inside your liver, something remarkable happens. Those fatty acids are converted into molecules called ketones. This is the hidden liver switch. It's not a visible switch. You don't feel it click. There's no instant external signal that tells you it has happened. But internally, your entire metabolic system has just shifted. You are no longer running on sugar. You are now running on energy derived from your own stored fat. This is the moment people are actually trying to reach when they fast. But most never get here, because it requires time. It requires your body to move through the earlier phases without interruption. And if you eat before this point, even slightly, insulin rises again, fat gets locked again, and the switch is turned off before it ever fully activates. Once this switch is on, everything begins to feel different. Your energy stabilizes. Instead of rising and falling with each meal, it becomes more consistent. Your brain begins to use ketones as a fuel source, which many people experience as increased mental clarity and focus. Something else surprising happens as well. Your hunger often decreases. At first, this feels counterintuitive. You would expect hunger to increase the longer you go without food. But once your body begins accessing its own energy stores, that urgent signal to eat becomes less intense. It doesn't disappear completely, but it softens. It becomes manageable. At the same time, growth hormone levels begin to rise. This plays an important protective role. While your body is breaking down fat, it helps preserve muscle tissue. Your body is not trying to weaken you. It is trying to optimize how it uses what it has. You may notice small physical signals too. A slight change in your breath, often described as fruity or metallic, caused by ketones being released through your lungs. A steadier sense of energy. Less of that sharp drop that used to follow meals. But the most important change is not what you feel. It's what your liver is doing. For the first time in hours, it is no longer storing energy. It is actively releasing and transforming it. It has moved out of protection mode and into utilization mode. This is the point where fat loss actually begins. Not when you stop eating, but when your liver finally switches. And once you understand that, everything about fasting starts to make more sense. As you continue beyond this point, something deeper begins to happen inside your body. Something that goes far beyond simply burning fat for energy. Because now that your liver has activated this switch and your body is running on fat-derived fuel, it enters a phase where it begins to clean and reset itself at the cellular level. This process is known as autophagy. It's one of the most powerful and least visible systems in your body. When energy from food is no longer constantly available, your cells begin to look inward. They start identifying what is damaged, what is inefficient, and what is no longer needed. Instead of holding on to these components, they break them down and recycle them. Inside your liver, this process becomes even more specific. It's called lipophagy, a targeted form of autophagy that focuses on fat stored within liver cells. Those fat droplets that have been sitting there, interfering with normal function, are now broken apart and processed. They are converted into usable energy or repurposed into new cellular structures. This is not just fat being used. This is fat being removed from inside the organ itself. At the same time, damaged proteins and worn-out cellular parts are cleared away. Old mitochondria, structures responsible for producing energy, are broken down and replaced with healthier, more efficient ones. This improves how your liver generates energy and reduces internal stress. Inflammation begins to decrease as this cleanup continues. And this is where the role of fasting expands. Because your liver is no longer just switching fuel sources, it is resetting its internal environment. This process does not happen instantly, and it does not happen at the surface level. You won't necessarily see immediate changes in the mirror, but internally, your body is becoming more efficient, more stable, and better regulated. You may begin to notice subtle external signs. Your energy feels more consistent throughout the day. You don't experience the same sharp crashes that used to follow meals. Your thinking becomes clearer, less clouded by fluctuations in blood sugar. Your hunger patterns also change. The constant urge to eat at specific times becomes less predictable. You feel less controlled by cravings and more in control of your choices. These changes are not random. They are the result of your liver functioning in a cleaner, more balanced state. As fat is removed from inside the liver, its size and function begin to normalize. It can process nutrients more effectively. It can regulate blood sugar more precisely. It can respond to hormonal signals with greater sensitivity. And this leads to another important shift: improved insulin sensitivity. Earlier, insulin was the hormone that kept fat locked away. Now your body becomes more responsive to it. This means less insulin is needed to manage the same amount of glucose. And with lower levels of insulin circulating, your body finds it easier to stay in a fat-burning state even after you eat. This creates a cycle of improvement. The cleaner your liver becomes, the better it functions. The better it functions, the easier it is for your body to maintain balance. And the more consistently you allow this process to occur, the more stable that balance becomes. But here's the part that matters most. This phase only happens if you reach the switch and stay beyond it long enough. If you break the process too early, if you interrupt it before your body has time to activate these deeper systems, then none of this occurs. The cleanup never begins. The reset never happens. And that is why most people miss it. Not because it doesn't work, but because they never give their body the time it needs to enter this state fully. Your liver already knows how to do all of this. It has always had this ability. It simply needs the conditions and the time to activate it. And this is where everything comes together. Because once you understand how this process actually works, you start to see why most people never experience it. It's not because the switch doesn't exist. It's not because fasting is ineffective. It's because the way most people approach it never allows the body to reach that point. They eat just a little too early. They stop right at the moment when discomfort appears. They interpret hunger as a signal to quit, instead of understanding it as part of the transition. And each time they do that, the process resets. The liver never switches. And without that switch, fat never truly unlocks. This is the critical insight. Fat loss does not begin when you stop eating. It begins when your liver finally changes its internal state. When insulin is low enough. When glycogen is depleted enough. When your body is forced to move beyond storage and into utilization. And that requires time. Not extreme effort, not suffering. Just enough time for your body to move through the sequence it was designed to follow. So the question is not whether fasting works. The question is whether you are giving your body enough time to reach the point where it can start working. And once you understand that, the solution becomes much simpler. You don't need to force your body. You don't need to push harder. You need to stop interrupting the process too early. You need to allow the transition to complete. Small changes make a difference. Spacing your meals further apart. Avoiding constant snacking. Allowing insulin to fall fully before eating again. Giving your liver the uninterrupted window it needs to move through storage, through transition, and finally into that switch. Because once that switch happens, your body begins to operate differently. Fat becomes available. Energy becomes stable. Hunger becomes manageable. And over time, as you repeat this process, your body adapts. Your liver becomes more efficient. Your metabolic flexibility improves. The switch becomes easier to reach. But none of this happens instantly. It builds over days, over weeks, through consistency rather than intensity. And this is where your control lies. Not in forcing fat loss, but in understanding when your body is ready for it. So if you've ever felt like you were doing everything right, but not seeing results, it may not be because you were doing the wrong things. It may be because you were stopping at the wrong time, right before the switch. And now you know exactly where that moment is. Have you ever reached a point during fasting where your hunger suddenly fades, where your energy feels steady instead of crashing? That's not random. That's your body shifting. That's the switch. And once you recognize it, you stop guessing and start understanding. Because your body is not unpredictable. It's following a pattern. And now, for the first time, you can see it clearly.